Hi, I'm Martin Booker, and coming up in this special edition of In My Own Words, you're going to hear from certified financial planner Lee Baker and actor Palmer Williams Jr. We're going to hear a fantastic conversation about talking to your children about the financial planning process when it comes to college, right after this. Welcome to In Your Own Words. We have a special edition today focused on college and finances. Today, I have with me Lee Baker, and I also have Palmer Williams Jr. My name is Martin Booker, and we're going to just start this conversation off with just some quick questions for these gentlemen. So, 2 children in college, 3 children in college.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot of money.
Right.
Possibly.
Could be.
Could be. So, when we think about like the experiences that you all have had just with college, what would you say? What are some of the just like practical changes that you saw financially when the children first started school, or just throughout their college experience? What are some of the things that you saw financially?
Well, so one of the things that we experienced financially, even though as a financial planner was prepared for our children to go off to college, it's a lot of the extra stuff, right? So you get the tuition, you get the room and board, but then it's maybe a moving truck. It's when you get there and you blowing up Walmart with all the extra things, the cost of books continue to go ever higher. So I'd say one of the things that you don't really realize until you're in the thick of it is all the extra stuff that's not on the cheat sheet that you get from the university.
Truly. I feel that for one is the shocker, or when you get the what you call the sticker shock. Of some things that you knew when you were in college, and now, eons later, as my son always teases me about being ancient, I look at some of the prices of things and I say, there's no way in the world I'm going to pay that, but I have to. But, you try to plan for, not only for their education, but for any type of rainy day or any type of life happenstance. Mm-hmm. So it's something that may happen along the way. Maybe the car needs some maintenance or something like that. And I feel like Cash App can be a blessing and a curse because, it's so easy to send money now. Mm-hmm. It used to be a time where you had to either wire it or you had to send it through, one of the various financial institutions or even through Greyhound. I don't even remember the last time I saw a Greyhound bus or Trailways. So those are the type of things that, you just don't anticipate, but you kind of halfway do. But you just don't expect it to be as much as almost a semester of cash apps that equate to a small compact car.
Darn near.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What are those conversations like? So when you were preparing to send your children to school or having those early conversations, what are those conversations like with your spouse when you're trying to figure out what do we do, and even during school, what does that look like typically?
Well, I definitely have to applaud my wife for that. She's big on research. Mm-hmm. She researched every possible scholarship from anything from various sororities, fraternities, churches, Walmart, if we can mention that, I guess, and various other retail giants that have monies available as far as scholarship form. And she did a lot of research with that, and it relieved me of not necessarily the burden, but the big responsibility, because it was never really a burden. It was always a big responsibility because all of my children desired to go to college, and we definitely instilled in them that it was very important for them to go. Because with my wife having 2 degrees and myself having 1, it was just something that we had discussed even before we had children. We started talking about like what we want for our children and how we want them to go to, whether it's an HBCU or a PWI, because my wife went to 2 PWIs and I went to the HBCU. So it was, they got a mixture of desires and a mixture of memories of what we were doing and how school life was different for both of us.
Now, it's interesting when you mentioned the beginning or the genesis of those conversations. With my wife and I, those conversations, again, started before we had children, but trying to right size it to be age appropriate, we had those conversations all along. And so some of those conversations were around building in expectations for them. I went to Georgia Tech. My wife went to the University of Florida. And so our baseline was, look, public school was good enough for your mama. Public school was good enough for me. It's going to need to be good enough for you. Yeah. Now, if we're talking about whatever it costs to go to fill in the blank public university here in the state of Georgia, you good. If you decide that you want to go to Harvard, Emory, or somewhere else, you're going to have to figure out that difference. And so early on, kind of trying to program them to think through this process, because there's nothing worse than some conversations that I've had with real life clients we're having discussions around Social Security claiming strategies and student loan debt. And we're not talking about doctors.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really try to speak to my kids about, and probably haven't spoken enough about it, but it's that economic gap that we have for a lot of recent graduates of college, especially those in the African American melanated communities. Because when you leave and you have this enormous debt, it also affects the economic gap that we have with the rest of the world. Because now you're faced with this debt, you don't necessarily have a job that you just walk right into and can pay off your student loans and things like that. And now you have your credit score is dropping because now you're defaulting, because 6 months after you graduate, you may not have that career job yet. And now if you want to move out of the home, now it's like, okay, so what are you going to do for a down payment? But you still have this debt. And how are you going to actually live off of your wages when you still have this debt? And then you get into the apartment situation, not knocking apartments, but then it goes into where you're never able to establish any equity in a home. And so now your financial freedom is taken away. And then that's when you start looking at your financial advisors like, where did I go wrong? You want to blame somebody, but it also comes with the education of finances. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we can drop the ball on that, unless, of course, we've been blessed with that type of knowledge, which it looks like I just picked up a new financial advisor today.
My God.
Now having those conversations with children, right? Mm-hmm. How do you balance that point of like, they're still a child. We want them to enjoy the world and be able to, just kind of live, but also, and not put too much pressure on them, but have a conversation that's a real conversation about finances and, and your future and what you're going to do next. Like, how do you balance that as a parent?
I, for one, think that all three of my children are different. Mm-hmm. And their approach to finances are different. Some have that old type of personality, like, well, I don't want to talk about it, like
Big Mom
Big Mom and them that used to do. Yep. It's like that's grown folk business. Mm-hmm. But now that they're young adults, and I have three in college at the same time, it has to be a conversation. So what do you plan on doing, when you go to school? What if the scholarship falls through? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do in the interim? So now there's this big balloon payment that all of a sudden appears, when the rainy day fund is now exhausted. Mm. And now the scramble to go and reach and grab for different things in order to fulfill what we felt as an obligation to make sure that you're educated properly or to get you to that, next step. But, if you're not doing the work and you end up having to foot that bill, then now the burden gets to be on you. Now you may have to go to the 529 plan and borrow from baby boy stuff and put it on baby girl stuff, and then the middle kid is looking like, well, what happened? I still got a little bit of a kitty here, but now you got to take baby boy stuff and put it on the middle kid, and baby girl may still be in school. So all of those things, and that's when all of a sudden you hit this financial brick wall where you're saying like, okay, well, maybe daddy got to downsize. Maybe he'll sell his car that he bought last year, or maybe he may think about, kind of tightening up on all of the finances. And that is something that you don't want to be faced with all of a sudden. You need to definitely be prepared for that sort of thing and implement it into your children's brains that they really need to work hard because those grades are worth it and they pay for school. So that hard work you do early will help you in the long run, and it will help your parents, and it will be a lot less tense around the Thanksgiving dinner table.
A lot.
How about you, Lee? Any
Yeah,
addition?
It's the thing of doing the work, but doing it early on. I think for a lot of us, we've gotten uncomfortable being uncomfortable, right? Sometimes situations are going to occur and they're uncomfortable, but you have to have that conversation anyway. And so for our children, going to school is your job. Me and your mama get up, we go to work every day. Back before COVID, we used to leave the house every day, but we still go to work every day. And so for you, when we take you to school and drop you off, that's your job. You're supposed to do what you need to do. Now, understand this, if you do your job well, it will benefit you. Because understand me, you know I'm not joking. We're going to write a check. Who that check is made payable to? Pick your university. The number, me and your mama can control that. And I promise you, it won't get any bigger than X. Any other gap, you got to make it up. So if it's you get there and you're going to pledge this sorority, if you're going to participate in all these other things, you need to be prepared to do that. And so we were fortunate or blessed in that our children to this point have listened to us well enough so that, you know, one child, when she got to college, I think she was like 3 hours short of being a junior the day she set foot on campus. And our younger daughter just finished her first semester on campus, and she's a sophomore now. And so those things that you can do, and you need to get started on it well ahead of college, can save you lots of dollars. So if you've got a semester, a year already in the kitty that your state paid for, or they got from AP courses, IB courses, or dual enrollment, you know, that kind of thing, it's incredibly economically beneficial to the family as well.
Mm. So it sounds like, I mean, from both of you, you're saying do the work, have the conversations, prepare, have the open dialogue with your children, and then there's a lot less that's going to fall back on you,
Right.
ultimately, for a parent.
You know, but we have different kind of children these days too, because you know you have the internet, so they know everything. You know, but the common sense side of it and the sweat equity that we may have had, you know, prior to them even being born, and then growing up in a different generation, you know, where work is just the most important thing over everything else, and to be able to listen. Because a lot of times in those difficult conversations, those uncomfortable conversations, we have to be uncomfortable to be uncomfortable. Because would you rather be uncomfortable talking about it, or would you rather be uncomfortable having to pay for it? So we have to try to figure out what's the happy medium in that, because it really is not a medium. You just got to have the uncomfortable conversations and make it happen, because otherwise you're going to be sitting in the dark when those utilities are cut off.
Yeah. To pay for school or something.
To pay for school.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really, the way they have it set up is, it used to be a thing where, well, that's not our responsibility for us to pay for your schooling. You go to school and you take care of it. Because my mother and her brothers and sisters had to take turns from the semesters because my grandparents could not afford to send them all to school at the same time. So one would go in a semester and then they would get a scholarship and they were able to continue on. Or if they didn't, they had to come home and work. Then the next kid would go up and they would be a freshman. And so they would go on. So now out of those, my grandfather was a junk man. He was a principal at first and married one of his first grade teachers. All right, and then raised a family. I mean, the junk paid more than education. Wow. So he actually did scrap iron. I call him a recycling engineer. So he was doing all of that, and he put all 8 of his kids through college on a junk man's salary, because they all worked it out to where one went, then the other one got a scholarship, then they could go back. Then some went off to the Navy, one went to the Marines, and one he re-enlisted and went to the Air Force. He ended up still getting a master's, you know, after serving in 2 wars, and then going back and getting his master's degree. And so, you know, you have these kids that came from a junk man's salary. So who am I to not finish if he can do that for his kids?
Yeah. It's amazing. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
I wonder also, and you started down a great kind of down a line that I wanted to talk about, which is extended family. Kind of looking at how the extended family is involved in the process of helping with your children, or how you as a part of an extended family are helping other folks. It's inspiring, helping to pay, anything, right? What did that typically look like with the college experience for your children?
So it's interesting to me. One of the things that you mentioned early on was Cash App. Now, I don't know the particulars. Okay, I don't get told certain things. I'm absolutely positive that Uncle Fat, Tommy Tom, so on and so forth, Gotti, whatnot. I'm certain that they're getting Cash Apps from people or Zells,
Okay.
right? And so that dynamic of when you're there in school, and it's not like we didn't teach them budgeting. Trust me, mommy the accountant and dad the certified financial planner, they were taught budgeting.
Wow.
They still go to school, and it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. So I know that they're getting that Cash App. In addition to the money, I think there's also a significant emotional benefit there. You've got more people that love you, right? Yeah, that's
Rooting for you.
That's your village. We got your back, right? Because in many instances, they didn't have those opportunities, or some of the opportunities for them were much more of a significant struggle. So here, I can bless you with $20 or $50 every now and then, and it can make for a more enjoyable college experience, because when your friends are going to go grab pizza, or sushi, or whatever it is they're going to go get, you've got some cash in your pocket, and you don't have to call and have an uncomfortable conversation with me when I ask you the budget question.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah. Cash App is definitely one way of going about getting instant gratification of knowing someone loves you, I guess. But I also think that my sister, she's the type that she may send you a letter still, because that's something that has kind of become obsolete almost. Right. And it may have a little money order in there.
Okay.
And that little piece of change means more. That $20 really feels like $100 because of the love that was sent with it. Sometimes my kids, my sons especially, is like, no, Dad, I got it, And I said, look, just let me be a dad today. Those are the things that actually give us some joy too. So to be able to do that and it be a little less stressful for you, if Daddy may have done another gig or done something else to where he can bless you with a little extra something, to where you don't have to stress about it, because you're thinking like, well, maybe I shouldn't drive today because I'm down to 60 miles left on my tank, and then all of a sudden I pop up and say like, look, put some gas in your car and send you $50. Well, where gas is going out, it may have to be $100 to get a half tank now. So, just those things that make us feel good. And then, you have things like trunk parties. Like I had one for my daughter when she was getting ready to go off to FAMU, and we would have people come by Marriott Theater in the Square and actually drop in cards, and they would drop in money. And that was a tradition that people used to do a long time ago, and I tried to bring it back with my daughter. And those are the type of things that you see just who loves you and loves your child. Yeah. Because if you love my child, then you love me. So they show that love, even if it's in a monetary form. It's still something, just a gesture, And the kids, I think they really do appreciate it. And they may not show it, because most of the kids today are not big emotionally, unless, of course, they're like, yeah, or they're very calm. Yeah. They don't really show a lot of emotion, but deep down, I think they do appreciate it. And then every now and then, they will tell you that, and that's the biggest reward. A thank you.
Okay. My last question for you two gentlemen. When you think about, just this process, right? You still have children. You have children finishing school, some that are still going through the process. What's one or two things that you may have done differently, just in the preparation process or while they're in school? What's something that you may have done
differently?
Yeah. Or something that you would share with a parent, as far as like something you've done very well that you would want other parents to know, like, hey, this is something that worked very well for us.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would share with other parents is actually something that I saw myself doing with our oldest daughter and did not emphasize it with clients. We talk a lot about getting to college. We really want our children to get through college and to be doing something fruitful. Now, I laugh and joke all the time, and I say, listen, here's my game plan. I want you to do whatever it is that you want to do, such that you never have to come back and live with me permanently.
Wow.
You get 6 months total. So like you can come back in between degrees or whatever. After 6 months, you a tenant, okay? And we're gonna have a signed contract. But in that process, some of the softer things that children need to do is learn to get comfortable having conversations with adults. Go talk to the professor. It doesn't matter whether or not you actually need help with that particular subject matter. Go talk to that professor, because at some point you're going to need somebody to write you some sort of letter of recommendation, right? Take a look at whether or not the university has an honors program. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but if you can get into the honors program, a lot of times you'll find out the child gets to register for classes earlier than everybody else. You get first dibs, getting into a dorm room, some of those sorts of things. If the student has determined what field of interest they are in, there's some group or some campus organization around that field of interest. Get involved, don't just join, but actually get involved to begin to develop your leadership skills, because that's really going to bear fruit for you down the road.
One of the things I would have implemented even more so is truly budgeting. And because I know I've had some downfall in that with my own situations with just starting a family. Another thing I would probably have done differently is the moment that my wife told me she was pregnant with our first child, I would have put some money in the bank right then for education, because I know this is going to be an 18-year journey that at the end of it, if I just put $100 every 3 months away for 18 years, can you imagine how that would have, grown? And that's the other thing about doing it early, thinking about the cost of living, what it may be 18 years down the line. Because, we joke around like, college for a public university is going to be about $500,000 a year, or something crazy like that. But you never know. And so you had to factor in the cost of living. And I think I would have been more stringent on teaching my children the value of money and the tool that it is and how to use it, as opposed to loving it, but learning to use it as the tool that it was intended to be. And also about finishing strong and completing the task, because you're getting ready to meet some people that most of the people that we know, we are still fool with in business or in friendship are the ones that were in college, because you are now in a closed community and a facsimile of what life in the real world is supposed to be. But you still have that umbilical cord that's not cut from home, because you still got that tether of finances that you have to pull on. And the more that I can get them to study harder or get the scholarships, and they have gotten the scholarships, but to be able to, I would rather put that money in their first house. I would like their graduation gift to be a down payment on a house. Mind you, I love my children. I really want them to be as close to me as possible. And in a bigger scheme, in a bigger, a better world, or a perfect world, I would have had acreage around me, and I have the big house there, and the kids have their own home, which is still something that could happen. But I would really want them to be so financially astute and financially gifted and legacy, because I want to be able to provide for my children's children. It's biblical.
Absolutely.
And then that's my duty to do that as a father. My father left me an inheritance to where I could start my family, to where I could actually use that money on a down payment for our house, for my wife and I, for our children. And I was blessed to be able to do that, because I had no money after the wedding, and I was on tour, going around, jumping around in an unstable financial type of situation. But God has blessed me to never have a corporate job. I've always worked for myself or worked for others as an independent contractor, and still have 3 kids in college, 2 about to finish in 1 year, and 1 just starting on just about a full scholarship so far, and that's the thing that I also did, like you making deals with your tenants.
Yeah.
So what I did I said, if you get a scholarship, you get a car. A car, and then it's a new to you car,
Yeah.
which you know that
There
means
you go.
used. So what happens is that I get a new to you car, and then that's cheaper than 1 year's of your tuition.
Yeah.
Nice.
So which is a better deal? So who you think is going to work harder?
There we go.
You know that's your incentive. So make it monetary. Kids learn the value of money real early when it
quick.
comes to buying stuff.
Real quick.
But what about saving it?
Yeah.
So help daddy save money so he can help you.
There you go.
I like
there
that.
You go.
And I will say, man, you said the financial incentives, amazing. You got to provide something. But
Right.
one of the things that you mentioned is key. I remember my sophomore year in college was in a business club, and our professor would take us to CBC events, the Congressional Black Caucus events, and he would say, go in a room and network, get business cards, and make connections. I was heart pounding. I was fearful. I'm like, I don't know who these adults are. I don't have anything to offer them, but he's like, go get business cards and go talk.
Right.
And the one thing that just doing that, it allowed me to always be in rooms and be comfortable with people that are much more successful than me, very prestigious, but it just gave me that confidence to be able to have the conversation. Like you said, talk to adults.
Yeah.
That's something that I gained in college, and I used that just immensely throughout my career, just in networking and making connections and just realizing that everyone's human. We're just having conversations. We are trying to build connections.
Absolutely.
But college, that's one of those things that college will teach you. And then I was always told that, one of the things about getting a degree is that it shows that you're able to finish. You're able to finish
Complete
something.
the task.
Yep, complete a task. And those are two things, like you said, beyond just the financial part, those are two things that I was able to take from college that have taken me a long way in my career.
That's what an employer sees when he sees your degree. That means that you finished.
You were able to go and you were able to finish.
And so that in itself, I'll tell you this quick story. I know we're doing a TV show, and it's probably edited out, I don't know. but so I actually in high school was a coach for the Special Olympics. My stepmother was what they called EMH, emotionally mentally handicapped. They use a different terminology now. But so we had this one kid that actually had been severely abused, and he ran with a swivel. He could not walk with his legs in front of him. He could only swivel like that, amazingly fast. I couldn't understand it. I was playing high school football, and I had to get on the hump to beat this 12-year-old kid. So we were there. They would have to spend the night at my house, and he had been abused with one of his relatives stuck cigarettes out on him and all that kind of stuff. So we kept him over at our house for a while. My stepsister got the girl's hair fixed up. I gave him a haircut, just because I play a barber on TV don't mean I'm good. But anyway, just,
I was gonna ask you to line me up later.
bruh, you don't want that. You see what my hair look like. My children stopped me from cutting their hair a long time ago. So I was, doing his hair and everything. He was just all excited. We got to the race. Got in the race. Pow, took off. The kid was in front of everybody. Kids that were over him and everything. He got like 15 feet from the line. He fell. So here I am, my emotional behind. I'm like crying and snorting. It's gonna be all right. It's okay, man. It's all right. He's like, and he was smiling. I was like, you okay? He's like, yes, I finished. Because he got up and walked across the line. He had never raced before.
Wow.
But he finished. Yeah. So that joy that the parents screaming, like, hey, that's my baby, and the blowhorns, even though we do too much. But at the same time, that's all of that. All that faith and being your ancestors along this street.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So thank you, Lee Palmer. I appreciate your time. That's our edition of In Your Own Words. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.